Welcome to Ansarkari. So today we are going to discuss about the important topics for UPSC prelims and mains 2023 for 19th of November. So as you can see that some countries support terror as a policy, and it is observed that with the regime change in Afghanistan, the threat of Al Qaeda and IS has become one of the major challenges as far as terrorism is concerned. And terrorism has different forms like extremism, like proxy wars. Then, draft data protection bill has been tabled, and we'll be looking at what are the changes that have been made this time. And there are certain things which are important for PT and some which are important for mains. So in this pictograph, you can see that the bill it narrows the scope of data protection regime to personal data protection. Then the act is applicable to personal data that is collected from users online. And secondly, the data which is collected offline but later it is digitized. So these two things are covered, and it only covers the personal data, and it excludes the personal data processed by an individual for personal or domestic purpose. And secondly, it excludes the recorded personal data in existence for at least 100 years. So this becomes important for PT. Now we see that the new draft it includes easing rules on cross-border data flows. So which is, we can say, a sigh of relief for the industries, because it will allow easier flow of data across borders, but it leaves out the non-personal data from its ambit. And a penalty of rupees 10,000 would be imposed on individuals who are providing unverifiable or false information while applying for any document, service, proof of identity, or address, or registering a false or frivolous complaint with a data fiduciary. So, fine has also been introduced. Then there is a concept of consent managers. So the consent manager platform it will enable an individual to have a comprehensive view of her interactions with the data fiduciaries and the consent that they gave to the data fiduciaries. So that is the role of consent managers. So you'll be able to see the consent provided by you to different data fiduciaries. Now, the consent of individual, the bill says that it requires the consent of the individual to be the basis for processing of their personal data. So obviously, the permission of the individual is required, and every request for consent will need to be presented to the data principal in clear and plain language. Then the data principal shall have the right to withdraw her consent at any time. I repeat, data principal, that is the individual whose data is being collected, that person shall have the right to withdraw her consent at any point of time. Then the power to the government. The bill also provides power to the government to offer exemption from its provisions in the interest of basically three things, that is sovereignty, secondly, integrity of India, and thirdly, to maintain public order. Then it also talks about formation of Data Protection Board of India. So these are the latest developments. Now, as far as air pollution is concerned, this is a topic of debate in every winters, every year. So you need to know about what is the Central Pollution Control Board. Find about it. It is important for PT. And let's move ahead. So when we look at the recent developments in Arunachal Pradesh, the Doni Polo Airport has been inaugurated by the Prime Minister. It is located in the capital of the state, Itanagar, and also the Kaming Hydropower Station has also been inaugurated. Then we have that the private sector entry into the space industry. So the first private rocket, it lifts off from the ISRO spaceport. Now the launch vehicle is named Vikram S and it is named after Vikram Sarabhai, and the private player is Skyroot Aerospace Private Limited, and we see that it is obviously India's first privately developed rocket, that is Vikram S, and the mission is named as Prarambh. So the rocket is a single stage solid fuel suborbital rocket, and Vikram S, it carried with it three customer payloads. So this becomes important for PT again. Now when we look at bamboo, so the fruit bearing bamboo, which is scientifically called as Melocanna baccifera, and it is associated with rat boom, which is also called rat floods, bamboo death, and famines in northeast India. So it is also called as mooli in northeast India, and this is the largest fruit producing bamboo and is native to the northeast India and the Myanmar region. Again, important for PT. There are a lot of facts for PT in today's newspaper. Then you must be knowing about what is SWEEP, that is Systematic Voters Education and Electoral Participation Campaign, who has launched it. Now, coming to the editorials, this topic is related to governor, and it says that the governor is under the constitution and not above it. So a healthy debate, a healthy discussion has been done in this article, and let's see what is there. So it has been observed that governors of some states, they have made complete mockery of the constitution and its limitations. So first, talking about what is important for prelims, you must know what is article 153, 154, 163, and also 164. Moving ahead, Supreme Court in its judgment under the Shamsher Singh versus the state of Punjab and others, he decided on this issue in 1974, saying that governor has all his powers and functions by making rules for the convenient functioning and transactions of the business of the government of a state as per Article 166, and this is called laying down or formulating the rules of business for a particular state's assembly. So this is under the power of the governor, and this was clarified in the Supreme Court judgment in 1974. So court says that wherever the constitution requires the satisfaction of the president or the governor, it is not his personal satisfaction or his personal freedom to decide. Rather, it is as per the constitution, the cabinet system, under the cabinet system of the government, it is under the aid and advice of the council of ministers. So when we are talking about president, it is under the council of ministers at the center, and when we are talking about the governor, it is under the council of ministers of that respective state. So this has been clarified in the Supreme Court judgment itself. And when we say, or when we talk about Article 356, that the governor will be justified in exercising his discretion even against the aid and advice of his council of ministers. So only under the situation when Article 356, that is concerned with the president's rule, is functioning in a state, or a president's rule has been applied in a particular state, only then the governor can take a decision that can go against the aid and advice of the council of ministers. So this is one area where governor can use his discretionary power, but in all other matters where the governor acts in his discretion means that he will act in harmony with his council of ministers. So in other cases, he has to work in coordination with cooperation with the council of ministers and not independently. So it is not about if it is written in the constitution under his discretion, it is not his individual freedom and individual discretion. So the constitution does not aim at providing a parallel administration. Obviously, if the governor starts taking his decision independently, it would lead to a parallel administration in the state. Then there have been debates on this topic in the past as well, and it is the responsibility of the governor to uphold the democratic ideas, to lubricate the machinery of the state to which he has been nominated by the center, and he must not interfere. Ratherly, he or she should do friendly intervention. So these two things are very different. Now we see what were the ideas of B.R. Ambedkar on this topic. So in the drafting committee, as he was the chairman of the drafting committee felt that the governor is not to have any kind of functions, no functions which he is required to discharge either in his discretion or in his individual judgment. According to the principles of the new constitution, he is required to follow the advice of his ministry in all the matters. So, no discretionary powers to the governor. And the real issue is not whether he should be nominated or elected, but what powers should be given to a governor is the real issue. However, we are debating about whether a governor should be nominated or elected, but the powers is the main topic that needs to be focused. Then Article 143, it says that basically Article 143 that needs to be read in conjunction with such other articles which specifically reserves the power to the governor, and it is not a general clause giving the governor power to disregard the advice of his ministers in any matter in which he finds he ought to disregard. So again, I am emphasizing that it is not the personal freedom of the governor. He needs to work, he needs to take decisions according to the constitution, and he's not supreme to the constitution. Plus, he needs to work in accordance with the aid and advice of the council of ministers. Then the governor has no powers to interfere with the administration in day to day affairs, also, including to refuse assent to bills passed by the assembly. So, this was an important article. Then the next one is concerning the Indian Air Force. So, the Indian Air Force needs a new doctrine, and the doctrine that we have right now was formulated back in 2012. So, things have changed in present times, and we need to take them into consideration to formulate a new policy. So, this whole article is talking about what should be the elements of the new Air Force doctrine, and a question on similar lines has been asked in the mains, which was about what should be the new features of the upcoming free trade policy of India, the foreign trade policy of India. Now, even this is on similar lines. So, we'll be first seeing what are the challenges faced by Indian Air Force today. So we can categorize those challenges broadly under three categories or three headings. The first one will be the security environment, second, the advent of new technologies, and thirdly, the issue of scarce finance that is available to the Indian Air Force. So these are the three headings that you can write them down or you can memorize, and further will be explaining points under three subheads. So under the category of security environment, we can say that India faces a threat of two-front threat, that is, two fronts from China and Pakistan. And under the heading of new technologies, we can talk about the unmanned platforms and space assets. Then we can talk about the role of space, the space sector, because obviously it will have a role in future conflicts, and also find out about the Outer Space Treaty, which is not being adhered to as per its features and the principles that were agreed when it was signed. Then we can also talk about that, like, it has been observed in the past that when a nation's economy will improve, it has to look for new raw materials beyond its borders. So basically, a nation will have to import the raw materials from abroad when it is progressing, when it is growing economically. So this would basically lead to a competition with other economies who are also progressing at the same time, and demand would also go on rising from that particular economy for the raw material also. Now, this element must also be taken into account, because we can say, or we can call it to be the expeditionary movements, and that this element must also be a part of the future Indian Air Force updated a new full-fledged doctrine. Then multi-domain operations, the world is graduating towards it, and a lot of elements are seeing developments at the same time, which are cyber, space sector. Then we are talking about the electromagnetic spectrum. Then all these things, they influence the operations at all. So multi-domain power synchronization must be the second element that must be the part of the new Indian Air Force doctrine. And the Indian Air Force is not just limited to fighter aircrafts alone in present times. There are role of aerial refuelers, the airborne warning systems and control system, then transport and helicopter fleets, radars, communication systems. So all these things play important and vital role in the operations, and they must also be a part of the new doctrine. Also, the fourth component that should be a part of the new doctrine must be that India is trying to cement itself as a regional power. So, humanitarian assistance, disaster relief operations that obviously India will be having a role in, they would be more strengthened and aided by the Air Force. So, if we neglect them, that would be to India's disadvantage. And so, this part, the regional power strengthening by India, must also be a component of the upcoming doctrine. So, we talked about what are the challenges, three challenges. We can expand them when we talk about what are the new developments. Then we talked about the four new components that must be a part of the upcoming doctrine. Moving ahead, when we talk about air pollution, we see that it's an observation as per a study which says where the population density is higher and where mostly the people from the lower economic strata are residing, the pollution is found to be higher in those regions. So we can focus on this factor to somehow get a relief. However, it would only help in the long run, and let's see what developments we'll be seeing on this front. Now, Supreme Court rejects the petition to create independent environment services. So, independent Indian environment services within the All India Service cadre, and do mention in the comment section what are your views about creating an independent environment services. And also, let me bring it to your notice that NGT has also suggested the formation of specialized All India Environment Services. Then the Madhya Pradesh High Court said that don't act against those people who convert without prior information to the DMs, because this is leading to the violation of the fundamental rights of the citizens, under Article 25, which guarantees the constitutional right to the freedom of religion, and it has implicitly in it the ability to choose a faith and the freedom to express or not express those choices to the world. So it is not mandatory, it is not obligatory for a citizen who wants to convert to another religion to inform about that to DM. Then you can see Kashi Tamil meet happening in Varanasi. So, Kashi Tamil Sangamam in Varanasi, and it is aimed at rediscovering the centuries old bond of knowledge and ancient civilizational linkages between the country's north and south. And it is being organized by the Ministry of Education in collaboration with the other ministries such as Culture Ministry, Textile Ministry, Railways, and Tourism. Then India and Russia they agreed to deepen the cooperation on counterterrorism at United Nations to further strengthen their bilateral coordination and work on constructive cooperation. And according to the National Commission for Women, the girls are being forced into prostitution in Rajasthan. So Rajasthan has emerged both as a source and a destination for the trafficking of women and girls for sexual exploitation and prostitution. So if you are preparing for Rajasthan State Civil Services, you must be aware about this. Moving to the world news, North Korea it test the intercontinental ballistic missile. So it is designed to carry multiple nuclear warheads and find out the island of Hokkaido falls under which country. The missile has a range exceeding 15,000 kilometers and it can strike the entire US and lands near Japan's waters. Also, it has earlier launched the Hwasong 17 missile, which can carry 3 to 5 nuclear warheads and fly as far as 15,000 kilometers. Then Nord Stream is a gas pipeline from Russia to Germany. Coming to economy, we don't have much, but the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, it has been urged to invest more in smart technology, and India is a founding member of it with the second highest voting share, which becomes important for PT. So that's it for today. I hope you've understood the topics, and if you have not, you can go through the video again and ask your doubts in the comment section. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share the video as much as possible. Thank you.